So first of all, I finally finished my website introduction animation. It took a really long time to complete, but finally it's done. It will be the first thing people see when they go on my website. That intro animation that shows off my characters and the worlds they're in. Hopefully that will draw people into the site. Yeah, I really do hope so. Be sure to check it out. I uploaded it on YouTube as well. And in the description of that video is a link to my website. Someday I really hope that there will be people who will really want to support my art. People who would be willing to support me, not just emotionally, but financially as well. Like so many other artists out there. Like the famed Neytirix. Oh man, that's one of my favorite artists. The way that she redesigns people's original characters. Oh, and I love her original characters too. Especially the characters from the mercenary team Red Chrysalis. Which reminds me, I have to make new 3D models of them. I got rid of the old ones because they were severely outdated. Now that I know more about X-Gen and have gotten so much better at modeling and rigging, I think I could do a good job this time. I'll be using Sisu from Raya and the Last Dragon as an additional reference for my new model of Ney, because in my eyes, Ney and Sisu, they kind of look alike, and in some ways they act alike as well. Sisu is kind of a goofball, and I like that about her, that she adds a little bit of comedy relief to the fantasy story of Raya and the Last Dragon. And you know, I'm sure there are a lot of dragon nerds who would argue that Sisu isn't even a dragon. You see, the thing is, as someone like me who also loves dragons, Sisu's design seems more like a different kind of fantasy creature. A Kirin, which is basically a furry, deer-like, long-tailed, single-horned, unicorn-like creature. But you know, if they call it a dragon, then so be it. There are dragons that are kind of like Sisu. They're called Arctic dragons. Arctic dragons have a serpentine body like Sisu, and they have fur like Sisu. Except Sisu's not an Arctic dragon, she's a water dragon. I wonder, what would happen if there were actual sky scaly winged dragons in Raya and the Last Dragon, but instead they were villains, and instead of breathing fire, they would breathe drone, like their breath turns people and living things into stone. Yeah, that would be a really cool villain for perhaps a sequel to Raya and the Last Dragon. Except Sisu and her dragon brothers and sisters would have to find a way to fight against the sky dragons to save the humans. Just a random idea that I have. I have a lot of random ideas out there. You know, there's this one idea that I have for in A Bug's Life too. I have this theory about the ants from A Bug's Life. The safety, security, isolation, and abundant food of Ant Island has made those ants grow into docile and weak creatures, because ants in real life are known for one thing above all else, and that's fighting. Nothing in the entire natural world fights like an army of ants. Nothing in the insect world could possibly defeat an ant colony. The only thing that can defeat an ant colony is another ant colony. A colony of ants can kill all kinds of creatures, sometimes even more than just insects and spiders and other creatures in the undergrowth. So, what about the ants of A Bug's Life? They weren't able to fight a small gang of grasshoppers. Real ants would have been able to completely destroy them. My idea for In A Bug's Life 2 is when the ants of Ant Island are faced with the biggest threat that they ever faced in all their generations of safety on the island. Other ants. Other ants that grew up like regular ants. Trained and raised to fight, hunt, and go to war. This new, stronger colony of ants wants to take Ant Island for themselves. They want it to be a part of their territory. It's up to, well, that's basically the concept that I have. That the ants of Ant Island have to overcome their sense of security. And they were able to defeat the grasshoppers, but they've really got to reunite their true fighting spirit in order to defeat these ants. Or do they? That's the question. In order to save themselves, do they return to their true warmongering nature? Or do they defy their nature and try to find a peaceful conclusion to the war? I guess I would have to leave that decision up to Pixar. But yeah, let me know in the comments if you guys think that might be a good idea for In A Bug's Life too. Coming up with concepts is a lot of fun for me. I mean, my creativity is basically the one thing that I treasure the most about myself. I love making up stories, and I love creating characters. That's why I created a whole website about it. I've got 3 books on my website so far. They're completely free for anyone to read at any time. There are also short stories that take place after the books. I still have to work on uploading the first book of my story Drift, but hopefully I'll get to that soon. I still have to finish putting in all the character bios. All that's left is the villains, but I still have a few more villains to do. Still have a few more villains to design. Yeah, it's really not easy writing all these stories and creating all these characters all by myself. You would not believe all the things I had to learn to make my goals possible. Sometimes I really wish that there was an animation company out there that was willing to bring my creativity to life by lending me some serious hands and actually paying me to be creative and actually paying me to work on building my many fantasy worlds. Still haven't found that luck so far, but hopefully I will one day. One company that I really wish I could work for is Warner Brothers. I know that's a bit of a fantasy. It's much more of a fantasy thing than a reality thing. I'm just such a huge fan of the Warner Brothers characters in movies. What with the Looney Tunes, with the DC superheroes, and some of the animated movies as well. Legend of the Guardians, the Owls of Ga'Hoole in particular. That movie got me into the books, which has offered me a lot of inspiration for many of my stories. Then, of course, there's Aquaman. Hard to beat that movie series. Yeah, with that kind of undersea adventure awesomeness. A lot of inspiration for my story, Marine Man. Yes. I I don't know. I'm sure that there must be a lot of independent animation companies out there who would be willing to see my talents and make my dreams reality. I'll just have to keep working hard until the right people notice my talents and creativity. But in the meantime, I've got to keep sharpening my skills. So something I thought of doing for some serious practice was making new 3D models for Neytirix's red chrysalis characters. I'll have to start working on that soon. So keep an eye out for that. And remember, Neytirix is an amazing artist. My subscribers should really check her out. She's an artist from Australia, and she creates a lot of really scary and terrifying artwork and stories. And she has this entire world, like, full of sci-fi and fantasy monsters. It's really incredible. She's also got this thing, like, if kids shows weren't meant for kids. Like, taking kid shows, chewing them up, and spitting them out into these morbid, horrifying concepts. I find it very interesting. Still waiting for her to do one about Dragon Tales. I loved that show as a kid. Kinda still like it today, to be honest. Would love to see her concept of making that into a totally mature horror concept. Well, that's probably it for me this evening. Time to go back to watching Investigation Discovery.